is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Conservative candidate for Mayor of London, Susan Hall, takes your calls with Nick Ferrari at breakfast, exclusively on LBC.
Exactly as it just said on the tin, 2 minutes after 9. Good morning on Wednesday, December the 6th, and it is, if I can say it, Call Hall, or so it could become a regular, who knows, if the polls go her way in a few months' time. Susan Hall is the Conservative candidate for the Mayor of London, and also, of course, is on the London Assembly already, and is in the studio with me. Good to see you again. Thank you for coming in. Before we move to the first call, we're talking in the morning after a night of horrific and fatal crime again in London. You'll be aware, I'm sure, that sadly one person has been fatally shot in Hackney, another fatally stabbed in Sutton. A word on that, if you would.
Well, I'm the same as you. You know, our hearts go out to the families. We've really got to get a grip on crime, and I hope Sadiq Khan really supports the police in trying to get to the bottom of these latest atrocities, quite frankly.
It's going to be the first call, so I'll let Aggie pursue that further. Before we come to Aggie's call, I'll just ask you, the latest poll, Susan Hall, has you 25 points behind Sadiq Khan. That's a heck of a distance to overhaul. How do you plan to do that?
I've got 5 months, Nick, by coming on shows like this, talking to your listeners, and basically knocking on doors, letting people know what I would do, how I would change. London needs a change. I know I'm the underdog, but I will fight. I am a fighter, and I want to lead London.
And you see that as a mountain that you can climb?
Absolutely.
25 points?
Yeah, absolutely. You watch, Nick. Yes.
All right. Well, obviously I'll watch and I'll be reporting as well. Aggie's in Southall. Aggie, you are through to Susan Hall. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I actually got two, if I may. So
okay.
I work for ambulance service, and sadly we do see lots of children being involved in night crime, being arrested, being wounded, and obviously, sadly, sometimes death, which often just doesn't leak to media. That's why I don't even think people are aware of the scale of the actual issue.
Right.
And we just wonder what's actually being done to, first of all, prevent those children, because they are children, most of the times, being actually lured into the gang crime, knife crimes, and all drug-related issues. And then what are we actually doing to stop those that sadly are already in this vicious circle? Because they can't just get out by themselves, and talks are just not enough. They don't need more talk. They don't believe in us adults talking anymore.
Aggie, stay on the line. I might get a response to you. Two aspects then, Susan Hall. Prevention, but sadly for the generations that might be already lost, for those already in, what do you do there? Start with the one you choose, Susan.
Right, OK. Well, I'm sure your listeners know, Nick, that violent crime has surged now to over 30% increase, which, you know, everybody on the streets are seeing this. Nobody is feeling safe now. We need to really get a grip of crime in London.
But how would you do that?
I found £200 million. Sadiq Khan has got a £21 billion budget. I found £200 million within that budget that would go straight into policing. We need to see more police on the streets. I'm absolutely supporter of neighbourhood teams, because they get to know the people in their in obviously the ward that they're in. And the more you know about the people within that ward, the more you know if there's tensions rising, if there are issues. Getting to the bottom of gang crime is absolutely essential, and it's something the police need to be doing more of. We need to be supporting the police. I want to be part of the solution with policing, not part of the problem.
So a return to more neighbourhood policing. What other schemes or initiatives or ideas? Would you look at the Glasgow exercise, where they treated it almost as a health issue as well?
Well, to an extent, Sadiq Khan was going to do that in London, all over London, and then he limited it to a couple of boroughs. But you look at Glasgow, yes, they had some very good results, but you look at the size of Glasgow compared to London. Also, and I've listened to you forever, Nick, you know full well, London is so very different in different parts. So different solutions are required in different areas, that's for sure. But Aggie, we absolutely have to get to the bottom of this. We have to help families that are suffering with either their kids being perpetrators or the victims of these terrible crimes.
All right. And lastly, initiatives such as we discussed earlier this morning, knives down, gloves up. or the glove experience where charities try and work with these young people. In those areas, it's in boxing, it may be in others. The old youth club idea. Is that something you would look to fund?
Absolutely, but the only problem, it's been pointed out to me on several occasions, is that kids that go to the youth club type thing are not likely to be the kids that will be in trouble. If it keeps some kids from getting into trouble, really good idea. Boxing is fabulous. I certainly helped to make sure we had somewhere for boxing in Harrow when I was the leader there. But there are very different things in different areas that will work, and it's got to be looked at, and it's got to be actioned. No question at all.
Aggie, thanks for getting us started. From Aggie to Andy in Brighton. Andy, you're on the phone. Your question to Susan Hall. Good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Hello, Susan.
Hello.
Yes, I wanted to ask, last week, or possibly a week before, it's crazy at the moment, last week you called LBC to report a crime. You've been a victim of pickpocketing of your card wallet and a bit of cash, etc. During that interview with Nick, you quoted you were very lucky to get it back, as if a low-life thief had been caught and apprehended and everything been sorted out. I think not just myself, but probably hundreds or thousands of other people, we just think the truth is you're fully aware that you just left it on a seat and a kind gentleman had found it and called you to say he had it, and you arranged to meet him, or he arranged to meet you to collect your lost property. It just seemed like you dressed yourself up as a victim of a crime wave, right. Got yourself on EBC and clearly lied about your senior moment. So my question to you is, at what point did you sit down and ask yourself, how can I use this to try and advance my mayoral chances? And will you now please apologise to the listeners? And may I remind you you're on LBC today?
Well, first of all, thank you for reminding me, but I'm well aware I'm on LBC, and I was delighted to be able to speak to Nick last week, and I remember saying to him I was the luckiest woman in the world because my wallet had been found, and I had received a phone call from a gentleman telling me that he'd found it. The truth of the matter is that I got on the tube at Westminster. You'll come from Brighton, so I'm not sure if you're aware of the Underground. I got on at Westminster with my card, got off at Pinner, didn't have it. And given that crime on the Underground has gone up 50%, I truly believe that I had been pickpocketed. But if you think thousands of people are listening, the joy of that is that thousands of people might think, right, I must be very, very careful with my wallet or my card or whatever else.
Do you want to revise your story?
No, because I don't know what happened to it, genuinely.
Susan Hall, are you still claiming that you were pickpocketed on the tube?
I'm claiming I lost my wallet.
That's not what you initially said.
No, I had assumed I had been pickpocketed. For all I know, I still was. I genuinely do not know. I got off at I got on at Westminster with it. I got off at Pinner without it. I am more than aware of the crimes.
Why would a pickpocket not take the cash or your credit cards, or indeed the whole wallet? Why would she leave it?
Yeah, but at that point, I had no idea. At that point, I just knew I didn't have my card.
Isn't the reality it fell out of your pocket?
I don't know. It's the honest answer. I had it at Westminster. I didn't at Pinner. I have no idea.
If you can't be trusted with your wallet, Susan Hall, why can you be trusted with London?
Because we have to look. 50% increase in crimes on the London Underground. I'm aware of that. I was very lucky. But I got my property back, but thousands of people don't, Nick.
But you told me today I have felt the consequences of that when a pickpocket targeted me on the London Underground. You sought to weaponise this, didn't you?
Well, I wanted to bring attention to the fact that we must be very, very careful.
And you've been caught out?
No, you're only caught out if you say something wrong.
So you said you were pickpocketed then? You're still sticking...
I don't know is the answer. I had it...
Well, let me put it another way. Do you think a professional pickpocket, or any pickpocket, would gain someone's wallet or purse and then leave all the cash and the credit cards in it?
The truth is, I have no idea. I had it at Westminster.
You don't know. So you've just been talking about how you'll get tough on crime.
Yeah.
And you think pickpockets might be in the practice of stealing wallets and then not taking the cash.
I know that pickpockets are on the Underground and it's gone up by 50%. That is what we should be concentrating on. I was exceptionally lucky. I got mine back. I suspect you've got loads of listeners that have actually lost property on the underground, and
Right.
it's a horrible feeling when you go to get your pass or whatever, and it's not there.
So just to clarify, and we will move on after this, Andy's asking you to apologise. There will be no apology because you still maintain you think you could have been the victim of a pickpocket whose level of incompetence is that they get hold of your wallet and then take nothing from it.
Yes, I could have been. When I was saying that, I had not got my property back. I was phoned later in the late afternoon.
OK, no revision of that. You're staying with that, Susan?
Yes, that's right, because it's the truth.
I'm grateful. Andy, thank you for the call. Should we move to other matters? Ian in Waterloo, you're through to Susan Hall. Go ahead, Ian. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Susan. Susan, Boris Johnson has turned up to the COVID inquiry 3 hours early this morning, so he doesn't have to face bereaved families. Is he a coward?
Now, this has been clarified, justified, thanks, Ian, by the Daily Mirror. They have reporters saying that the former Prime Minister has arrived early. They are saying because he then might have to be able to avoid relatives and for those of grieving families. To Ian's question, is that an act of cowardice?
I've no idea. I'm very early for everything. I was here before 8 o'clock this morning, so I have no idea. You'd have to ask Boris.
Well, talking about asking Boris, what do you think he needs to be asked today at the inquiry, Susan?
That's for the inquiry to ask.
Well, respectfully, you're seeking to be Mayor of London. I don't need to tell you the population of London, north of 8 million people.
Yeah.
A lot of your citizens you might represent lost relatives.
Yeah.
And you'd have no question for the Prime Minister at the time on behalf of Londoners.
I'd probably have lots of questions.
Well, I just asked you, what might the question be?
Did he have anything that he could share with us that he'd learnt from it? Did he think he did anything wrong? I mean, there'll be a whole load of questions. I'm concentrating on things that are going on in London.
Do you not think some of the aftermath of the pandemic and the lockdown is still felt in London today?
Of course
I could
it
take
is.
you parts of the city, you may know them, where businesses never recovered.
No, I know, Nick. I know.
Well, wouldn't that be a question again, if you were Mayor of London, you would say, former Prime Minister, Mr Johnson, why did you do that? Because I've lost businesses. My people have lost their businesses.
And that's the purpose of the inquiry, to learn lessons. And so they will be doing that. And then we can look at what people like Boris and everybody else has said. The whole thing is to learn lessons so that, God forbid, when we get something else, we'll be able to move forward. And yes, I'm more than aware that businesses have suffered. They really have. They're still suffering from the ULEZ expansion that's gone on. That's what's really causing problems at the moment. And that's what the mayor could change. I'm looking at things that a mayor can do that will make a difference to Londoners, because that's the important question.
At the start of our conversation, I referenced the fact that you're 25 points behind. Of course, the only other politician who's fought this seat successfully, the Conservatives, is Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
What can you learn from him as regards running for London Mayor? And would you welcome his support over the next 5 months?
I'd welcome anybody's support, Nick. London needs a change. If you look at crime, we've started off the conversation with crime.
Sadly,
it desperately needs to be dealt with. The ULEZ expansion is absolutely dreadful. It's nothing but a tax on the poorest of Londoners. That needs to be dealt with.
Have you had any contact with Boris Johnson?
Boris phoned me up to say if he could help me in any way, he would.
And do you seek to capitalise on that?
I may well do at some point. We've got to remember, under Boris, crime reduced. He was a much, much better mayor than Sadiq Khan is.
And lastly, I know you're knocking on a lot of doors. What is the general opinion of Boris Johnson when he was the Mayor of London and when he was Prime Minister? Do you think he's an asset in your fight or a negative?
I'll be honest, when I'm knocking on doors, I get two things. If I'm in outer London, the ULEZ expansion is mentioned at almost every door, because if you've got a compliant car, for sure you know somebody who hasn't, or you're having problems if you're in a business in outer London. So in outer London, definitely that's on everybody's lips. The other, in inner London, because it's crime, and more crime, which is why we've got to get to grips with it.
Well, this next question is related to that. Nick's in Slough, admittedly just outside London. Your question to Susan Hall, Nick. Go ahead.
Hiya, Nick. Hiya, Susan.
Hello.
Susan, what's your thoughts on more of the British public losing respect in the police, in particular the Metropolitan Police? Because of what we've been seeing as two-tier policing over the last couple of years. We see a couple of years ago with the police how they handled Black Lives Matter, Extinction Rebellion, as opposed to how they handled the anti-lockdown protesters. And quite frankly, we've seen it again recently on the pro-Palestine marches. They've been firing fireworks at the police, and I see it. The police did not react. and they surrounded a van just the other day and demanded someone be released, and the police caved in and released the prisoner.
Do we know that for a fact, Nick? Did you physically see that, or is that something you've picked up online?
Physically see it, and it's all over social media. I'll be happy to share it with you, your LBC team. And,
OK, Nick, thank you for that. So it's dual policing, and also, as Nick rightly points out, this is the nation's largest police force. Yeah. It's in special measures, Susan Hall.
Yes, it is.
I mean, ultimately, the Commissioner, he or she, would report to you. What would you say to them?
Hello, Nick. Thanks for the question. And you're completely right. Since 2017, trust and confidence in the police has absolutely plummeted. I don't think it's ever been as
How is it to be restored, though? That's the key, isn't it?
Well, by starting to act, in my opinion, in a more balanced way. I mean, you touched on it. Two-tier policing has been said to me so many times, and that is. And
let's talk about that. Nick tells us about this extraordinary incident with someone being held in a police van. We have witnessed what many people say soft-touch policing in some demonstrations. Again, what would your instructions to the Commissioner of the Met be in such instances?
No soft touch. Absolutely, I'm stick.
What does that mean?
And I think we need to remember it's a police force, not a service, a police force, and we've got to get respect back to police, and that means they've got to solve more crimes. We've got to get more police on the streets. On these particular instances, sometimes we have to accept the police are completely outnumbered by demonstrators. In some instances, if they were to go in, I suspect they know that they would put all of their officers in real danger. Now, if that's the case, one has to sympathise with some of the things that they've done. But you have to remember that since Sadiq Khan has come in, since 2017, trust and confidence in the police has plummeted, and we've got to get trust and confidence back again.
When Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, talked about how she would want to police the pro-Palestinian demonstrations, was she, in your view, right?
She referred to them as hate marches, which, of course, caused issues. I will always defend people's right to demonstrate or to let their voice be heard. But really, we're getting to a stage where I so feel for our Jewish communities who are frightened to come into London. They're frightened to go onto the underground. I see on social media yesterday that sometimes buses are not stopping for Jewish... Stamford Hill. But I've read that on social media, which we all know you can't always believe. But that's just not good enough.
Were they hate marchers, as Suella Braverman said?
I think there was an element in there of hate, but most people were walking because of the issues around Palestine, but there clearly were problems within there. I mean, some of the chants were unexpected.
Well, I was going to ask, under the Met Force, under Mayor Susan Hall, would they be told the minute they start chanting Palestine from the river to the sea, or they start carrying posters likening the Jewish people to Nazis or whatever, would there be arrests?
Absolutely.
For chanting from the river to the sea?
Yes, because other things are regarded as hate crime. I would certainly suggest you ask a Jewish person, they will say absolutely. Absolutely. It's unacceptable.
All right. Nick, thank you for your call. Vidal in Streatham. Vidal, you're through to Susan Hall. Go ahead.
Hi, Susan.
Hello.
Hello. In 2020, you talked about the Notting Hill Carnival, and you said that you don't think that the public understand how dangerous Carnival is. I'd just like to remind you that 2 million people went this year. 2 million people went last year. At least 1 million people have been going every year pre-Carnival, pre-COVID.
Right.
So I think they do understand. It's one of the safest festivals in London, in the UK, actually, in Europe. It's safer than Reading. It's safer than...
I'm sorry, I have to challenge you there, because if you look at the statistics as regards injuries to police officers, comparing Reading and Notting Hill, with respect, Vidal, you are wrong, and there are even...
No.
But I need to move... you're not debating me, so can I ask your question to Susan Hall, if you would? But I had to challenge that. If I can ask you to your questions, Vidal, I'd be most grateful.
It's the crime, it's the overall crime figures, not just to police officers.
Well,
most people who go there are not police officers.
Can I ask you for your question? Thank you, sir.
Right. Okay. You interrupted. And your only involvement in the carnival was actually to understand a police operation, not to actually understand the carnival.
Vidal, I've got a lot of people who want to put their questions. Could I ask you to move to it, sir?
London is 46% ethnically diverse, non-white. I don't think you've got any black friends. And what makes you think you're in? What makes you think you're in touch with London in order to run it?
Thank you very much, Vidal. OK. Vidal is asserting that you're not in touch with the ethnic population and that you don't have any black friends. That would make it very tough to run London, I would suggest. Your response to Vidal?
Yes, Vidal, hello. Thank you for your sort of question. Yes, Notting Hill, I actually suggested that it would be safer somewhere else. It's a victim of its own success because it is a wonderful occasion. People do enjoy it, but yes, some of the injuries are very bad, and to police officers. Now, everybody that goes to the carnival goes because they want to enjoy themselves. Police officers go because they absolutely have to. They know that without doubt, looking at previous years, without doubt, some of their colleagues will be injured and injured badly. Now, so I have only suggested that the organisers of Notting Hill look to move it. That's what I've suggested. And my knowledge of it and its security is I've spent time in the police operations unit on several years, looking at the areas, and I won't say where they are, where they know that there is a specific particular issue. Now, if there's an event that could be managed much better and safer for everybody, whether it's police officers or the party goers in a different place, I would suggest that it was a good thing, therefore, to move it. However, it's not up to me. It's actually up to the organisers of Notting Hill.
Thank you for your question, Vidal. Let's go to some of the text, emails and questions that are coming in, Susan Hall. Rachel in Bexley, can you ask Susan Hall, one, does she agree that London wouldn't be London without immigration and the immigrants who've come here? Two, therefore, can she possibly support the Rwanda Treaty, which is against that very spirit? I guess part one, I'd be amazed if you didn't agree with that London wouldn't be London without the fantasy. Well, I wouldn't be here either,
No.
So we
God
can move.
Forbid, Nick.
There we are.
God forbid.
The city's suffered enough. But the Rwanda Treaty, your take on that?
Listen, immigration is a good thing, but if you look at London now, we've really got to make sure that legal immigration, obviously we all agree with. Illegal immigration, I absolutely don't. And if you look at the issues we've got in London now, we don't have enough housing. We cannot continually deal and house people in London. Although Sadiq Khan should be building far more than he is now. There are many issues around that, and lots of measures need to be taken for that.
Yeah.
I agree with legal immigration, and of course
But do you agree with the 5-point Rwanda plan, which supposedly we'll see numbers come down by some 300,000?
We need to see numbers coming down. Immigration is far too high. I absolutely approve of it, and I hope it goes ahead. I hope we find lots of different solutions, because this has got to be dealt with. It's avoided by so many politicians. It's got to be dealt with. We've got to make sure that we can accommodate people in London, and at the moment we can't.
If the Rwanda plan necessitated the United Kingdom leaving the ECHR, would you support that?
And I'd have to look at what was being suggested, but we've got to deal with immigration.
I hear you, and I think most
essential.
people would agree. But under this Rwanda plan, you know that British taxpayers, a lot of Londoners, will fund 5 years of housing, legal, recreational and job training costs for each migrant sent to Rwanda.
Yeah.
How can we support that?
Well, because we're supporting actually housing the illegal immigrants, etc., in London anyway. Taxpayers get a rotten deal at times. We're paying for a heck of a lot of people, and what we've got to do is try and get people working. Legal immigration is a good thing because we need the workers in London, but we also know they're looking at people that are coming into the country that are bringing their dependents, and I'm glad that's being reduced as well. Because
isn't this a negative effect on multiculturalism, though?
No, it's we've got to. I'm here to look after Londoners. Londoners don't have enough homes. We've got to do things that don't make the situation much worse. And obviously illegal immigration into...
this is legal migration we're talking about.
Well, we need to reduce that as well. I'm sorry, but we do.
All right. Colin in Windsor. Colin, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Hi, Susan.
Hello.
Hiya. Susan, I'd like to ask, why does the word Conservative not appear on any of your placards and posters when you put photos on Twitter of you out campaigning? I don't see the word Conservative. Why is that?
Probably I'm a bit naughty. I just keep putting Susan Hall out there so that people will know who I am, so they'll know who to vote for on May the 2nd next year.
Doesn't quite answer the question, does it?
To be honest, I'm more aware that we're trying to get my name out there so people know who to vote for. I'm the only alternative to Sadiq Khan.
Well, you're not. There are many other people running, aren't there? There's Howard Cox, there's Rob Blackie, whoever it might be.
But in all honesty, Nick, I'm the only one that can beat him.
But why would you not put Conservative Party on your on your literature?
I think the imprints on everything have got Conservative on it.
Well, OK, lastly, how does it strike you, Colin? I've got a view on it. Colin, you asked the question. Come back briefly if we can, sir.
I think it's all to do with the fact that there's an internal Tory inquiry into Susan Hall's selection, and that she doesn't have the full confidence of the Tory party.
Let's put that to Susan Hall.
Firstly, that's wrong. Secondly, I'm thrilled to bits that you're obviously watching all my tweets and my social media, so that's positive. But there isn't an internal investigation. I won the selection fair and square, and I've got my party behind me. I've been a Conservative all my life, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm just trying to get my name.
I'm sorry to be hung up. Why not put it on your literature?
Would it make you feel better if I did?
Doesn't matter what I feel with respect to medicine. I was talking to your listeners. I don't need to tell you, Susan Hall, there are people who run incredibly busy lives. When they come to polling day, they may be loyal blue Conservative candidate, and they might just want to see, who's the I can't remember. It would have helped in your literature to tell them that you're the Conservative, wouldn't it?
I think they'll know by May the 2nd. I promise you, they will know by May the 2nd.
OK, lastly, how would you characterise your relationship with the Conservative Party currently?
Yes, I've worked with I am a Conservative. I'm a Conservative.
No, your relationship with the party.
Yes, it's good.
It's good.
It's fine.
But you don't want their name on your poster.
Very often people don't do that. I find it's slightly nitpicking, and next time posters are made, I shall think of you, Nick, and I shall think of Colin, and I shall think of you, Colin, and I shall ask somebody to put Conservative on it somewhere.
David, thank you, Colin, thank you. David in Bermondsey, moving towards possibly the last one. David.
Hi, Nick and Susan.
Hello.
Susan, Sadiq Khan's policies have massively increased congestion throughout London. Will you reverse those policies?
OK, it dropped a bit. Yeah, Sadiq Khan's policies have massively increased congestion charges and charges for motorists across the whole of London. What would you do about it, is in essence, because the land was a bit bouncy, I know that. Right,
OK, the first thing I do is to remove the ULEZ expansion on day one. That's a tax on the poor. It's an unfair tax. Secondly, there would be no road user charging in a Hall mayoral town. I can never say that word, because he's got a whole team of people looking at the software to put in pay per mile, and that will affect every single driver on our London streets. Sadiq Khan is waging a war on motorists. We're gridlocked in London for various policies that he's put in. The cycle lane on Park Lane is nothing but a nonsense and virtue signalling. 30 miles an hour should be back on the Finchley Road and places like that. We need a moving city. It's ridiculous. Some of the things that are put in place make my blood boil, because we need the city to be moving.
Mayoralty is, I think, the word that we're getting to.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the word. Now,
I need to get that right.
OK, well, indeed, if you get the post, it might help. You probably are aware, a group of London Conservative MPs is bringing a private members' bill to Parliament to try and overturn the ULEZ expansion. Your reaction to that, and I assume you would fully support those MPs?
Of course I would, because they too are aware of just the damage that this particular tax, this unfair tax, is causing. But if it doesn't go through, or if there's a problem with it, don't worry. May the 2nd, vote for Susan Hall, who's a Conservative, to make Colin happy. But vote for Susan Hall, and I will stop the ULEZ on day one of my mayoralty.
And lastly, that means you've lost £5.3 million a week, of course, in finance. Recent data showing that's what came in the first week in late August. You don't need that £5.3 million to combat crime, to put more officers on the street?
I don't need it from the poorest members of our society, Nick. No, I do not. The one thing that you should never do is to go out of your way to tax the poorest in London. It's an utter disgrace.
Enjoyed our time together. Maybe we'll get to call Hall one day, but I sense we'll meet each other again before the vote. That's, of course, in May. Susan Hall, the Conservative candidate, appearing here on LBC.